At first there was the smell of a burnt match from hot sulfur. Then there was a roar from the water. The huge underwater volcano Tonga Ha'apai woke up. On a warm afternoon in January 2022, it started shooting its insides into the sky above this group of Pacific islands with a force that had not been seen before in recent times. A lot of people, many miles away, could hear the blasts. The cloud of gas and ash blocked the sun. As the tsunamis hit land, they swept away towns on Tonga's low-lying islands and hit shores as far away as Peru. No one has ever heard of a volcano erupting with so much force. It woke them up. Scientists say the event made it clear how dangerous underwater volcanoes are. There are thousands of them in every ocean on Earth, and some of them are very close to the coast. But even now, more than 18 months after the big eruption, even the most vulnerable countries are finding it hard to keep a closer eye on these ocean monsters. According to experts, there are dozens of active seamounts around the world that could explode like hunger if the conditions are right. This could kill hundreds of thousands of people and change the shape of coastlines. There are about 1 million other underwater volcanoes in the world. Most of them are extinct and millions of years old. These environmental disasters are some of the least watched over in the world. An in-depth map has only ever been made of a few of the easiest to reach underwater volcanoes. A lot of volcanologists, even experienced ones, say they don't know much about what goes on inside these magma-filled buildings when they're not erupting. The difficulty in learning them comes from both the cost and the way to do it. Specialist gear used for keeping an eye on things is pricey, often too expensive for wealthy study institutions, let alone small developing countries like Tonga. There are a lot of these volcanoes that are out in the ocean. Putting the instruments in place is hard, even in shallow water. It takes skilled teams, a network of boats, and communication devices that can send data in real time. Geologist and volcanologist Kenna Harmony Rubin of the University of Hawaii said, "It's hard to say which one will be next and when." After a small volcanic eruption in early 2015, two deserted islands joined together to form Tonga Ha'apai. Above the waves, you could see the volcano cone. The volcano goes down about 6,500 feet to the bottom of the ocean. Before the 2022 eruption, the caldera, the crater-like hollow at the top of the mountain, was about 500 feet below sea level. Like the insides of other volcanoes, Tonga has vents and magma pools that are part of a plumbing system that goes deep into the rock. As the magma moves through this system, gases can build up and make the pressure inside rise. When the pressure inside the rock gets too high for it to hold back, an eruption can happen. Tongans have to deal with eruptions all the time. Living there, people are aware of the dangers that come from falling ash and ocean waves caused by shallow water eruptions. But no one could have predicted what happened in January 2022. The kingdom used to be a British protectorate. It is made up of 170 small, mostly flat islands, but only about a quarter of them are occupied. 12 active underwater peaks, including Tonga, are spread out across the islands. All of them are in the Kermadec-Tonga subduction zone, which is where two tectonic plates crash into each other. From New Zealand's North Island to the northwest tip of the Tonga Island chain, this area of the Pacific is prone to earthquakes. The largest island of Tongatapu is a 100-square-mile atoll about the size of Sacramento. It is home to most of the country's 106,000 people. The main things that keep the economy going are farming, tourists, and fishing. A lot of people in Tonga make their living by growing cash crops like coconuts, squash, and root veggies on small plantations. A lot of people also count on money sent back from family members who work abroad. If you look back, Tonga hadn't done much for 7 years. In December 2021, a string of small explosions began. From Nuku'alofa, Tonga's main city, which is on the north coast of Tongatapu about 40 miles away, an ash plume could be seen. Sulfur dioxide spread to the rest of Tonga's island groups, and steam and ash spiked over the edge of the volcano. On Tongatapu, some people would get together for drinks and watch the volcano erupt. Is the baby island going to survive? Asked Virginie Douillet, a French teacher who lived in Nuku'alofa until not long ago. things seem to have calmed down by early January 2022. On January 11, the Tonga Geological Services said the volcano was no longer active. But a few days later, the smell of sulfur filled the city of Tongan. Fine ash particles scattered the sun's light, making the sky look like something from another world. But in a way that made me feel like bad things were about to happen, Erupts said. Soon, the water along the shore of Nuku'alofa started to recede, making whirlpools. People in the area knew right away that this meant a tsunami was coming. It made people really scared, Erupts said. Selafe Tangane, a teacher and mother of two who is 30 years old, was making her way through some trees on Tonga's Nomuka Island when she heard a loud boom. She felt the ground shake under her. She got out of the trees and saw neighbors and friends running into the woods. A lot of people were yelling, and some of them had kids in their arms. Water from the ocean was rushing over the land. "You can't go there," yelled a boy. He meant that you shouldn't go near the road because it was already full of water, Faitangane remembered. Faitangane rushed into her car with her husband, their newborn baby, and their 4-year-old son, and they drove to a high place. There were more booms, and they were so loud that Faitangane could hear them. As they sped away, they watched in horror as a wall of water flooded their area and knocked over houses. The sky got darker. It rained ash. Faitangane and other people who lived in Nomuka took cover on a mountain. Because they were out of clean water to make baby formula, Faitangane had to give her baby daughter to another mother to milk when she ran out. Farangane said, "That day, we thought it was the end of the world for us." A group of scientists from around the world, led by Shane Cronin of the University of Auckland and the Tonga Geological Services, spent months looking into what caused the hunger eruption to be so strong. Cronin's team found that the hunger eruption may have started when different kinds of magma mixed inside the volcano. This may have led to a fast buildup of gas. The increase in pressure set off the eruption, which threw out so much molten rock that it pushed the crater down. The ocean rushed in over the hot, molten rock that was rising through the structure. Large amounts of steam and magma rushed through the volcano's small cracks, creating new ones and letting more magma rise. When the water drained into the volcano and hit new magma, it set off a chain reaction of explosions. Material from the volcano shot up at supersonic speed, making a plume 36 miles high into the sky. Two kinds of tsunamis were caused by the earthquake. One was probably caused by the fall of the caldera, which pushed a huge amount of water out to sea. The other one might have been caused by shockwaves in the air from the explosion. Within an hour of the eruption, waves from the tsunami hit the islands of Tonga. Some of them were over 50 feet high. After hours, smaller waves hit the shores of other countries around the world. Lisala Folau was walking on the island of Atata in the southwest when the waves hit. He held onto a mangrove tree as the water tossed him around. His son was calling out to him at one point, but he didn't answer because he didn't want his son to risk his life to save him. Folau said he held on like that for 27 hours, thinking the whole time, "I can't lose the tree." In a different part of the island, Elisivatu Evi and her grandmother also stayed alive for hours while the waves shook them. It was hard for them to keep their heads above water. She said, "I was afraid I would die as the water washed me in and out." They were able to swim back to land during the short break between waves. As they climbed to the top of the island, the path was littered with downed trees and what used to be her neighbors' houses. As the night went on, more people rose from the water. They took a boat to Tongatapu the next day, and that was the start of almost a year without a home of their own. The eruption of Hungaraja took place from the afternoon of January 15 to the next morning. People more than 7,000 miles away in India could feel the shockwave. Atata and Tonga's smaller Mango Island, which is about 60 miles away, were both badly damaged by the tsunamis. 4 individuals died. 84% of the people in the country were touched by the blast, either because they had to leave their homes or because their farms and properties were damaged. It was dark in Tonga for days. The island country lost the phone and internet cables that connected it to the rest of the world. The satellites saw the biggest and greatest volcanic plume ever. It blocked views of the country from space and made people all over the world worry about how bad the damage was. The damage we couldn't see on the ground. Did the island just disappear? Had everyone in the area died? Volcanologist Sam Mitchell of the University of Bristol said, "Even when the ash cloud went away, we still didn't know because the underwater cables were cut. The pictures from space were coming out, but we still hadn't heard from them. It was very upsetting." Faye Tangane and her family and other people spent the day on the hill on Nomuka while they waited for the water to go down. She said, "When we got down, there was nothing left for us. Not even our clothes, house, or food." She said that when the rescue boats came, they helped. The family lived in a tent at first, then moved into an old house that was strong enough to withstand the wave. "That's fine with us as long as we have a roof over our heads," she said. The damage in Tonga has brought attention back to the risks of underwater volcanoes around the world and made people wonder which one will blow next. However, experts warn that even countries that aren't very poor will have a hard time keeping an eye on threats that are out at sea. Volcanologist David Clark of the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute in California said, "Right now, monitoring is so bad that almost none of them are being watched at all. This lack of monitoring is not because no one is paying attention. It's because there are so many submarine volcanoes that could be active, and it costs a lot to set up and maintain even one seismometer." Bill Chadwick, a research professor at Oregon State University's Hatfield Marine Science Center, said that the Western Pacific is now the most important place to worry about. In subduction zones, explosive action happens all the time. A dangerous area is a 1,740-mile stretch that starts near Japan and goes south in the Western Pacific. The subduction zone that connects Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga is the same. So is the one near the Aleutian Islands, which are a line of large volcanic islands in Alaska that are geologically similar to Hunga. Some of the known submarine volcanoes could be very dangerous for people living close. Another volcano called Marsiili is only 109 miles south of Naples. It is 1.8 miles tall and lies under the Tyrrhenian Sea. New models show that action there could cause a tsunami with waves as high as 100 feet, which could cover the coasts of Sicily and Calabria. Rubin of the University of Hawaii said, "Submarine volcano monitoring is in its nascency, which means it is well behind the state-of-the-art for volcanoes on land. Scientists have to keep an eye on things all the time. Quick changes on the surface can mean that magma is building up below, as can the buildup of toxic gases and more earthquake shaking, which can mean that pressure is rising. For real-time tracking, instruments on the seafloor must be able to talk to a lab. This can be done by either connecting the instrument to the lab with a cable or wiring a buoy to a device that can send acoustic data via satellite. It can cost up to $36,000 per day to do research at volcanic sites, and it can cost millions of dollars to put cables close to pick up activity." Clark said, "For the several hundred known submarine volcanoes, such a network is just too expensive to think about." In the long term, Rubin says that cheaper ways to keep an eye on submarine volcanoes may be on the way. For example, swarms of low-cost next-generation sensors could send data back to land for computers to study. "As a global scientific community, we're not there yet," Rubin said. "But I hope that the next 10 years of technological progress will make this possible." Last year's huge explosion in Tonga has made it more important than ever to keep an eye on all kinds of volcanoes. Geologists are now trying to put in new instruments to keep an eye on the land-based volcanoes along the main island chain. Thermal infrared monitors will help geologists keep an eye out for changes in temperature at cracks and vents that could mean an eruption is about to happen. Sulfur gas monitors will keep an eye on when dangerous volcanic fumes come out. The country of Tonga is also getting synthetic aperture radar, which scientists can use to see if there have been any changes, like the ground growing because magma is rising closer to the surface. Cronin of the University of Auckland said that there are lack of long-term seismic records in the area to provide a background of what is normal and what is heightened activity. Right now, 6 of the 8 new seismographs that were supposed to be built are up and running. It's hard to keep an eye on volcanoes to predict eruptions in general, Rubin said. Even when a lot of tracking gear is in place, warnings can come days or even hours before a blast. And warning ahead of time can't always stop the long-term effects of a big explosion. Because of the Hunga eruption, Tevai's family had to move to the main island of the country. There are now 22 units on a newly built plot paid for by the government in Masilamia, where 10 of them live together. Her mother, Elisiva Taimikovi, is one of them. They also lost their jobs at a nearby lodge, and the family doesn't know what the future holds. We were only given the houses. This house is not a home. Our plantation and daily routines are no longer there, Taimikovi said. The family sits cross-legged on the floor. There is a small tent outside their front door where extra rooms would be very helpful. She said, "We knew we couldn't rebuild what was lost the year before, but it's hard to accept this new truth. We will always remember. This will always be with us." Meanwhile, a new study shows that in 2018, the biggest known underwater eruption gave birth to a huge baby, an underwater volcano the size of a skyscraper. Scientists found the 8,20-meter tall, 2,690-foot volcano in the western Indian Ocean, off the coast of Madagascar. They did this after a strange series of earthquakes happened near an area that is usually very quiet for earthquakes. The team found a new underwater volcano that was about 1.5 times the height of One World Trade Center in New York after gathering geological data, which included data from a 2019 underwater scan of the area. On top of that, this new baby gets its magma from the deepest volcanic reservoir that experts know of. Lead researcher Nathalie Foyet, a marine geoscientist at the Paris Institute of Earth Physics, IPGP, University of Paris, told Live Science, the source of the magma, the reservoir, is very deep, about 34 miles, 55 kilometers, below the surface. This is the first time in volcanology that we can see such a deep reservoir at the base of the lithosphere. The lithosphere is Earth's outer shell, which is made up of the crust and upper mantle. More than 11,000 earthquakes were felt in Mayotte between May 2018 and May 2021. Mayotte is a small island and French region between Madagascar and Mozambique. There were also strange seismic hums, or very low-frequency earthquakes, that started deep underground. People couldn't feel them on the ground, but seismometers all over the world could pick them up. The strongest earthquake was a magnitude 5.9. Volcanic activity is linked to these very low-frequency earthquakes. Researchers wrote in the study that this rapid seismic activity was strange because there have only been 2 earthquakes found near Mayotte since 1972. Also, the most recent volcanic activity, a layer of pumice in a lagoon near the island, happened at least 4,000 years ago. Based on GPS data, scientists found out in July 2018 that Mayotte was moving eastward at a rate of about 7.8 inches, 20 centimeters, per year. That time, the island only had 3 or 4 GPS stations. To find out more about the natural changes happening there, scientists put in place global navigation satellite systems and ocean bottom seismometers all around the island. The experts found something amazing. Between February and May 2019, the land and ocean bottom seismometers picked up 17,000 events. Foyet and her co-workers had the chance to go on a trip on the research ship Merian de Fresnes in May 2019. The team knew that there had been a magmatic event east of Mayotte. However, they didn't know if the magma had stayed below the rock or if it had come to the surface of the water. Foyet said, "We thought we would see something, but it wasn't certain." In a 2019 post, she said, "On board, we set up a protocol to look at the seismic signals that the OBS, ocean bottom seismometers, recorded. We were able to exactly locate the nearly 800 largest earthquakes, with magnitudes between 3.5 and 4.9, in less than 2 weeks. The teams worked around the clock in shifts. They succeeded. We discovered that these earthquakes were, for the most part, located in an area quite close to the island, 10 kilometers, 6 miles, from the east coast of the island, but were deep. Between 20 and 50 kilometers, 12 to 31 miles, deep," wrote Foyet. When the ship's multi-beam echo sounder sent out sound waves to map the seabed and water column, it said it found something very big about 31 miles east of Mayotte. It was a volcano under the water with a pyramid-shaped building that was about 1.2 cubic miles, 5 cubic kilometers, in size. The previous study by France's Naval Hydrographic and Oceanographic Service said that this volcano wasn't there in 2014. So it was brand new. The 2014 survey said that area was almost flat at around 3,300 meters, 10,827 feet, below sea level, which is what the study authors wrote. The newly formed volcano's peak was 8,465 feet, 2,580 meters, below sea level in May 2019. The volume of material that this volcano spawned is 30 to 1,000 times larger than other documented deep-sea eruptions. It's more than 3 times larger than the 2012 Hava eruption in New Zealand and 2.5 times larger than the 2014 Bardarbunga eruption in Iceland, which was Iceland's largest eruption in the past 200 years. It appears that plate tectonic movement led lava in the asthenosphere, the upper layer of the mantle directly below the rigid lithosphere, to move upward. This magma flowed upward in geologic dikes, which could explain the earthquakes and the subsequent massive eruption. Also, this explosion near Mayotte doesn't look like the first one. Big lava flows and cones on the upper slope and on the coast of Mayotte show that this has happened before, the study's authors wrote. The team is keeping an eye on the area in case there are more earthquakes or volcanic activity. It's still erupting, Foyet warned. The last evidence for lava at the seafloor was in January 2021. As Charles Kualt says, it takes an earthquake to remind us that we walk on the crust of an unfinished planet. You can suggest topics you want to see next in the comment section below. Please subscribe to Weather Collapse if you want to know more and be updated on the latest news about natural calamities or disasters happening all over the world, and don't forget to like today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.